All right, let's talk about what just happened in Boston. And I'm not going to edit this video or anything of that nature. You could look up everything that I'm talking about. I really need to get this out of here and onto here. So here's how it goes. So City Council of Boston, they just approved another tax hike. Okay, we all saw this happening. We knew this was going to come. And it went from $11.58 per $1,000 of assessed value to $12.40. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a lot of money. It's less than $1. But in terms of the purchase prices in Boston, it ends up being quite a bit of money. Figure, take a $800,000 property. Your taxes are more than likely, maybe this year even, maybe they were around $9,200. Well, next year, they're going to be closer to $10,000. All thanks to Mayor Michelle Wu. And if you think about it, prior to her getting to office, your taxes were more than likely around $8,500. So you do the math. You're paying a lot more. It's roughly about 25% since she's taken office. And 25 to 26 is going to be 13% of that 25%. It's a lot of money. That is a lot of money to have to pay in terms of 2 years, 25% on your real estate taxes, okay? It's a lot of money. And you also may be sitting there thinking, yeah, Mike, you know what? This isn't that great, but I'm a renter in Boston. This won't affect me at all. Well, guess what? You are completely wrong. Completely wrong. Most data shows that landlords pass at least at an 80, maybe to 70 to 90% ratio of any property tax increases onto their tenants. So think about it like this. When the city ends up jacking up these taxes come 2026, this is going to affect rental properties as well. The landlord is not just going to eat that cost out of the goodness of their heart, because normally they can't. They're running a business. They're not going to eat these costs. So Michelle thinks on average, it's going to be about $780 for a residential tax increase across the board. Now, again, that's across the board. So where do you think that money is going to go? That money is going to get charged to the landlord and effectively charged to the tenant. But one of the biggest problems here, and one thing that I see nobody talking about, is the amount of renters that are in Boston. There's like over 300,000 residential units that are about to get hit with this tax increase, and about 185 out of that 300,000 plus are renters. It's like 60 to 65% of the people living in Boston are renters. So now we have renters who will inevitably get hammered with rent increases because of the increase in property taxes. And this is the real reason Wu has been screaming about affordable housing and tenant rights since day one. This is why she fought like hell to dump all of the tax burden onto commercial property owners instead of spreading it around, because she knew that this was coming. She did. And the renters, you know, you guys that have been cheering her on and voting for her, you guys should feel betrayed. Really, you should feel betrayed. You guys should be pissed off. And honestly, you should feel like you got duped, because guess what? You did. You got duped. This is your mayor and you got duped. Now, here's the bigger picture. Put your tinfoil hat on for a second, because I don't think this is some kind of accident. I think this is the entire point. I've been saying this for years on this channel, for years, if you've been watching. The next thing that's coming is rent control. It's coming. So this is how it goes. This is the play. Both Wu and Healey, this is what they're trying to do here. They're trying to get the government to subsidize property owners so that they could balance their budgets without those costs hitting the tenants, that most of these tenants probably support these people directly. Okay? These are people that probably haven't been here for that long. They move here, they vote blue, and they do not want to lose their voter base. That's what's happening. They're going to subsidize the owners to reach their goals. And here's where it gets brilliant. Okay? This is a brilliant plan. Okay? Think about it from this perspective. When all of these property owners in Boston are forced to sell because they can't afford the tax increases, because they can't raise the rents to cover the difference because of rent control, the state doesn't lose any money. You want to know why the state's not going to lose any money, especially in Boston or high-priced areas? The millionaire's tax. The 4% surtax on income over $1 million that voters approved back in 2022. Look at it this way. When a landlord who's owned a property for 20, 30, 40 plus years, they go to sell this property, they're probably sitting on hundreds and hundreds, if not over $1 million in equity. That's what they're sitting on. So guess what? They go to sell said property. Of course, if all of the stars align, and boom, now they're going to get hit with a 4% of that profit on top of their regular capital gains. Multiply that by hundreds of properties. Multiply that by thousands of properties over the course of multiple years. Guess what? These people are getting squeezed out, and the state is going to take a windfall of revenue. That's what's going to happen. They will literally profit off of forcing people to sell. So they're not just consolidating the ownership here. They're turning the whole entire crisis into a revenue generator. That's the game. That's what is happening. And believe me, I hope and I pray that I'm wrong here. But I don't think that I am. Not in its entirety, because this is exactly the way that it looks to me. And this may be on accident, or it may be on purpose. Maybe you guys could decide that. I certainly don't know, but it looks to me like it's on purpose, okay? So essentially, they've effectively created a scenario, of course, again, for certain types of people, that you're either screwed if you stay and you're screwed if you leave. This is, of course, if rent control ends up getting passed and areas continue to have higher taxes like Boston, okay? And we're going to touch on that in a couple minutes here. These people, okay, these politicians created a crisis within their budgets, another crisis with the real estate taxes, and then they will offer rent control as the solution. Then they will use the taxpayer money to prop up the entire system while they all look like the hero. It's the perfect scam. And here's why. Look at it this way. Rent control doesn't fix the problem. It just shifts the problem to who's the most likely to get screwed. So when you cap rents, what happens to the landlords? Small landlords and these smaller business owners, they're the ones that end up getting hammered. You figure the guy that's living in a 2-unit in Jamaica Plain, living in one side and renting out the other side, what do you think this guy is going to do? Really, what do you think that he's going to do? His property taxes just increased by 13%. He's going to offset that cost on the tenant. But if there's rent control in place and he could only raise the rent 2, 3, 4, 5%, he's not going to make that money back. He's losing money. Do you see what I'm saying? He's losing money. I'm not going to do a deep dive onto rent control here. I'll save that for another video, but believe me, it's coming. So think about what's happening here just for a second. The government created a problem by overspending. Then they end up jacking up property taxes, and that problem causes the rents to spike. Then the government offers a solution that sounds good, but makes the problem worse in the long run by driving out small landlords and consolidating ownership. That's what's going to happen. This is what it's like. This is like if I punched you in the face and then I sold you the ice pack, but you only end up focusing on the ice pack that I sold you, and you forgot that I punched you in the face in the first place. That's what's happening. Do you see what I'm saying here? That is what is happening. And Wu and Healey, they are the architects of this crisis, at least some of them. They are the architects of this crisis. Then they end up positioning themselves as the heroes who are going to save you from it. The reason that they're going to do that is because they want to maintain their voter base. Let's just call it what it is. That's what it is. And then what'll end up happening is, on top of these politicians doing these shady tactics, the legacy media will eat this up. If rent control passes, the legacy media will eat this up and it'll prop them up even further, okay? Because they're not smart enough to connect the dots. That's the reality. Or they're complicit in not wanting to connect the dots. That's the truth. So you add all of these things together. I'll sum this up like this. Boston residential real estate taxes going up, rent control, the millionaire's tax, then it comes down to Prop 2.5, okay? Prop 2.5, that's the end game. That is the end game here, guys. And I've said this before on previous videos. Michelle Wu has called Prop 2.5 a fundamental problem. Her fundamental problem. She is on record saying this, okay? She is on record saying this. And the reason that they are saying this is because they can't control their own spending. Maura Healey echoes the same exact sentiment. They want the towns to have flexibility. They want to be able to raise your taxes as much as humanly possible whenever they want so that they could look like the heroes. They are testing the waters here. It's already been tested. And if rent control passes in 2026, if they successfully convince enough people that the problem is greedy landlords and not the government policy or the government's overspending, then they are going to work on killing Prop 2.5 as the next logical step. It will be. Believe me, I know you don't want to hear this, but believe me, it's going to happen. They will say that these towns and us, we need more revenue, we need more affordable housing, we need to fund schools, we need to fix the roads. And people will vote for it because they're not connecting it back to the budget crisis, to the property tax crisis in Boston, to the crisis of rent control that started this entire thing in the first place, okay? That's what's going to happen. And I don't think this is really even I really don't think this is a conspiracy, guys, because if you go to Reddit, Michelle Wu openly admitted that landlords will pass the tax increases on to the tenants. She said this. I'm not saying this. She said this out loud, okay? And this was on Reddit. And she has been consistently pushing and been an advocate for rent control consistently since 2023. She knows that the policy and her policies are going to hurt small landlords. And she also knows that it is going to cause consolidation. And she's going to do it anyway. Either she's incompetent or it's intentional. I'll let you decide, which one it is. But that is the way that I see it. Every single little portion, every single little thing that has been done in order to try to balance the budget and balance the spending it's kind of like dominoes now. It starts with the budget, and then the dominoes start to fall from there. And believe me, Prop 2.5 will be the last domino that falls. But it will only fall, in my opinion, if rent control gets enacted. That's what I think is going to happen. It's going to go exactly like that. Budget crisis, taxes going up, right? Then after the taxes going up and landlords offsetting that cost to the tenants, the next is rent control. After the rent control, it's going to be Prop 2.5. That is what's going to happen. All because we live in a state that wants the middle class to be eliminated. All because we live in a state where we live in a welfare state, or you're either on welfare or hyper rich. That's what these people want, okay? That's what these people want, because the people that are in poverty, due to any levels of, this is not rocket science, due to any levels of an incentive framework, they're more than likely going to vote for the people that incentivize them. The middle class is being disenfranchised. They are the people, which are probably the Republicans and the independent voters here in this state, that are the ones that are upset the most about what's going on. And then you have the people that have a ton of money. And they're the ones clutching their pearls behind or inside of their gated communities or, very hyper rich neighborhoods that don't have to deal with all the nonsense in between. Do you see what I'm saying? That's what I think is going to happen. Mark my words. And I will do a future video on rent control. I know a lot of people out there are struggling with rents, but rent control is not the answer, guys. It is absolutely not the answer. It's never worked here. It's never worked anywhere in the entire world. So unless Massachusetts has some kind of, they have some kind of dark magic that they could conjure in order to get this to work, I don't think it's going to. But based off their previous performances and based off of what they've done so far, they don't hire professionals to come up with any of this stuff. Okay? They really don't. They hire anybody as long as this is the credentials. I just got off I'm not going to say with who, but I just got off the phone with somebody. We were talking about this. I think you have to have minimum 50 prior convictions before you end up working for the state. Not more than 100. You have to be somewhere between 50 and 100 to work for the state. That's at least how it goes. Or to give your opinions on something for the state. These people have no idea what the hell they're doing. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying a good majority of people that are in the decision-making process that get hired, or they're independent consultants or whatever, they're not doing things that are in the best interest of the middle class. And what is happening in Boston is a perfect example of that. That's it. I could go on forever about this. This has me heated. I will say one other thing. I don't also think the answer was increasing the commercial property tax rate, okay? That's not the answer either, all right? So it's bad that the residents are getting hit with this. It would also be just as bad if commercial got hit with this as well. I don't know what the lesser of two evils are. I would have to do a lot of thinking on it, but it's bad either way. They should have done things to trim their budget, is what they should have done. Not tax people more, whether it be commercial or residential. Okay? That's it.